Coming up, after 84 days walking in the dry heat under the desert sun, Ben Simmons makes his mighty return for the Brooklyn Nets and does not disappoint. We break down why he could be, if he can be, the most important piece for this team to turn it all around. Coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. Over there is Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets if you bet just $5 and it wins. Go ahead over to FanDuel.com/locked on to get started today. And Doug, 147-114, a blowout victory at home against the Utah Jazz in the return. The most important piece of information we can convey of Ben Simmons healthy to the basketball court.
Buddy, it took 18 minutes, and I'm going to be absolutely irrationally excited for the rest of the season. 18 minutes of near perfect basketball from Ben Simmons.
Come on.
It was like he was never gone, baby.
Just like we drew it up, baby. Not even better than before he was gone. Maybe
I got to tell you, never in my wildest dreams could I have ever he couldn't have had a better 18 minutes. It's insane. It's like literally insane. It really couldn't have been drawn up any better from the absolute total tanking of the Jazz in this game, where they put up 147 points. Simmons is 5 for 5 from the field, nearly tripled up. I mean, 2 rebounds away, and one of Cam Thomas almost took from him. He was like 2 rebounds away from a triple double in 18 minutes. The pace is all over the place. The energy levels all the way up. It's like you could feel. It's like it's even different than the beginning of the season. I'm almost speechless. It was so good from him that I hesitate, like an A+ would be too low. It's like, this is where you start to get irrationally excited because it literally could not have gone better for a return from him.
And, I said at the top there, after 84 days away, November 6th, the last time we saw him play, all of the, hey, in 2 weeks, like we got to that place on the podcast where it was like, listen, we can't keep doing this. The emotional roller coaster of what could be. And then to your point, man, he steps on the floor. I know that he's played better maybe basketball games for the Brooklyn Nets, or maybe I don't know that for sure, because the athleticism, the lift, and then all of the impacts that he has on this game from a total team perspective, obviously. But just point stop on, I did not think that his return, 18 minutes, would get me to come darn close to being like, well, okay. I thought that he's going to, he's going to look X percentage of his athleticism, right? And we'll talk to me in a week. He looks as athletic and as healthy as he ever has as a Brooklyn Net. And that was the most surprising thing for me. It didn't look like it was restricted beyond the amount of minutes they were going to run him.
The thing we preached about Simmons really since the beginning is there's 2 parallel kinds of conversations you have to have about him. It's clearly, we've said from the very beginning, he's the guy that's like unlocks really the rest of the roster. Like he's the one specific guy they need. He's the archetype of the guy they need. They've needed it forever. And it's like, it's obvious. It's actually not even really a take. It's like if him at like 70% is so clearly, what they need to pair with Cam, what they need for transition, what they need is secondary ball handling, like rebounding, like everything. It's everything they need in a kind of player. So there's that conversation. And then there's the conversation where it's like, but what you don't want to do is get over your emotional skis on getting excited about it, because you're just going to go tumbling down the hill because he gets hurt too often. And so basically it's so funny because going into this game, that's exactly where my head is like, look, I get it. No matter what we said in the past, you have to understand something. There's nobody that wants Simmons to be good more than us.
Yep.
Like the Nets being good is tied directly to how well the podcast does. That's not inside baseball here. That's just like how it is. Like if your team's really good, more people listen to the podcast. It's like I don't know what else to say about it. So of course we want him to be good. There's just this other part where it just happens he plays so infrequently that you'd be nuts to tie your emotional fandom to him coming back, because it just the track record would say it's disappointing. Now, with all that said, I'm already there. 18 minutes, like 18 minutes. I'm the one that's preached this very steady hand approach about Simmons from the very beginning. I can't even, if you were pro Simmons, you must need to be toweled off. Like this it was just that good that even I now am like, that's a huge upside, baby. They have huge upside. Like, this is crazy. Yeah.
2-game winning streak, baby. Now we ride. Now we go get that superstar. You're right.
But does that make sense?
Mitchell, all in, all the assets. Yeah, dude, 100%. And it is the part of covering the team. Yes. But I think you and I probably do get, not emotionally invested is a little bit overstated, but we do get invested just in the good story, right? We hate seeing guys get hurt. We love seeing guys be healthy. And there's nothing better than just seeing a guy walk out there and look like he's playing an absolutely elite level. Yes. So everything about it was perfect. Now, everybody else, we'll talk to some of the other players here. The biggest thing, if we just want to get into the actual game of it, we've always known, especially for this roster, just how critical it can be for a player like Ben Simmons to be on the floor. And that's because we're talking about a skill set that goes beyond just the pace, just the facilitation. You obviously see, right? We mentioned there how he has nearly a triple-double if he gets a couple more rebounds, but he gives you 5 assists, 6 assists in the first quarter, 5 assists in the first quarter, and then very quickly his 6th early in when he comes back in the second quarter. And what's the impact there, right? It's not just that he's pace of play and that he's the best ball handler on the court and the best facilitator and setting up other guys in great positions to be able to knock down easy and open looks and access around the basket. It's also the size that he brings to that role, because it's not a knock on anybody else, Doug, but when you see when he comes out, even when the team wants to maintain that same mentality of getting downhill and attacking, well, guess what? Dennis Smith Jr. attacking downhill is not the same thing for the opposing defense as Ben Simmons. When he gets into the paint, when he gets into the teeth, even though he is not a risk to shoot the basketball, it just forces such a different mentality from the other team that it's like a wake-up call. I feel like I woke up out of a coma and someone was like, oh, by the way, food tastes delicious and the air is so fresh. Like, that's what that felt like for this team overall that has been stagnated. Even in games when they look good, they never looked this free-flowing offensively. And it's so ironic that Ben Simmons does that for them.
Well, he just does very specific things that no one else on the roster does, right? Yeah. One, he has better court vision than anyone else on the roster, right? That's obvious. He sees the court in a totally different way. He's bigger than most other guys on the roster with his just sort of overall handle. So he can just see different lanes. He just sees different lanes geometrically than everyone else can, just because of how he moves in space and just what he's always looking to do. So that's one thing. No, they have no one else on the roster like that. Yep. Two, his default mode is push the pace. No one else on the roster is like this either. He pushes after misses and he pushes after makes. You saw, I was so glad to see that again. Even after opponent makes, he's like, let's go inbound. Here we go. Yep. No one else has that mentality, mostly because they're not as good at it. Right. And so just those two things alone being able to bring into the mix is so important, because they just don't even have another guy anywhere close to it. And that's why the game, when he plays like this, has a completely different feel to it, to the point where, like I said before, players fed off the energy for sure, right? Yeah. They feed off that energy because here's the thing, you're going to get rewarded. You saw how this kind of plays out. If you play at the same pace, you have a good chance for easy buckets. You're going to get rewarded because he's not going to take it himself. He's going to give it to you to score.
Right. Right. Ben Simmons getting his own is giving it to you. That's a part of Ben Simmons getting his, is getting rebounds, getting the assist, right? So that's the byproduct of him having his best game is actually you having your best game. And that's why, coming up here in a second, we're going to talk about why this is, and we already knew this for Cam Thomas, we talked about the start of the year, but also Mikal Bridges, the way that this changes how their games unfold on the offensive end. We'll dive into that here and so much more in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, we'll tell you about our friends over at Quiz. That's because this episode of Locked On Nets is brought to you by Quiz. We're going to have some fun. Test your team's knowledge. If you heard this one the other day, stay silent over there. Let the other people in the room be able to answer this. Which player holds the record for most points scored in a single game for the Nets? Brolo? VC, Vince Carter, Jason Kidd, Kyrie
Jason
Irving?
Collins.
No, it's old friend Kyrie Irving. Adam would have gotten it wrong, but you wouldn't have. Over on Quiz. That's Quiz with 3 eyes. It's the next generation trivia experience. Also the world's first platform where you can earn money playing knowledge games. You heard me right about that. You can earn money playing knowledge games. And for Locked On Nets fans, we created a NBA quiz game where you can test your knowledge and win real cash. You can play with friends or other fans. Let your knowledge shine all the way to the bank, baby. You can play without downloading anything. You just go to app.quiz, QUIIIZ.com. Start playing today. NBA Quiz, ultimate knowledge challenge for fans that live and breathe basketball, which we know all of you out there are doing. Go to app.quiz.com. Test your knowledge. Win cash today. That's Quiz with 3 eyes, just like the three-pointer. Play now. Showcase your skills. Take home cash prizes. App.quiz.com, where fans become champions.
All right, so as we continue the absolutely epic performance, not only from Ben Simmons, but also from the Brooklyn Nets overall, with the 147-114 blowout victory at home over the Utah Jazz, we remind you guys, you can also head over to wegotnets.com and sign up with your email for a free ebook, 5 stories in 5 days, all about the best, well, and sometimes the worst moments across the Brooklyn Nets franchise history, even going back to those Jersey days, and you'll be alerted when we're providing some of our other exciting new little.
Well, can I say one thing about the We Got Nets before we go? I already had multiple people reach out to me asking for more stories. So, like, already proof is in the pudding here. We have more people just coming out and say, "Hey, give us more." Adam and I put a lot of work into the ones that are already up there, but there's plenty to tell. So, really, really excited. So, make sure you visit wegotnets.com. One shameless plug there. Go ahead.
Got so much more pudding that we could give you guys. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Now, when we think about this game, I mentioned there also, one of the things that I think as this team is going on a very long losing streak, you start to think, well, look at these guys, Mikal Bridges, especially Cam Johnson. Boy, their weaknesses, their deficiencies are getting exposed. We never thought they were elite ones, but Mikal Bridges, his handle, can he really be a guy that gets the ball in late sequences? Well, he doesn't need to when you have Ben Simmons, because he goes 37 minutes, 12 of 24, 6 of 14 from deep, a 33-point performance, had 4 assists and 3 rebounds to go along with it. But so much of it was, just like you said, get out in space. Let's push the tempo here. Everybody find a nice little pocket for yourself, and I'll find it for you if I'm Ben Simmons. And that, by the way, is being a little bit microscopic because everybody had really good games tonight, but it was the impact. And you even mentioned that first segment. The energy that I think Ben Simmons' mentality brings is that even when he went off the floor, it seemed like the team was trying to still keep that pace and keep pushing. It didn't work all the time, but they tried to bring that mentality. Mikal, excellent game. Cam Thomas, excellent game. You just see how much easier the offense looks when you have Ben Simmons putting that pressure on the day.
Yeah, and like I think that we're just going to be, I hope we can just end up signing up for more of this, right, too, because if the mentality is going to change, and maybe this is like the team that was just ripe for having sort of like an energy boost in general, right? Like things had become pretty stale. Like there was an idea here that you could kind of see happening that like certain parts of the offense just weren't working, certain matchup, like certain combinations of guys just really weren't getting it done. They didn't really have much like offensive firepower. They really don't outside of Mikal and Cam, and like in on-ball creation. And while Simmons doesn't offer that, he still offers us, like I said, other element of complementing what both of those guys do. Like those guys, someone said it to me on Twitter too, and I feel bad because I'm not gonna be able to find this right in this moment. But what those guys, and really specifically Cam Thomas, needs, it was just such a good point, was that they need someone that's just like not gonna care if Cam takes all the shots, right? Right? Like he's like of anybody in the NBA. Simmons just doesn't care at all. Like, go for it. He'd rather you take all the shots. 16 shots for Thomas, 24 for Bridges. Simmons loves that. Like, because as we know, he doesn't really like to shoot. And I think that like that, even more than anything else, plays in really well to this current roster of these guys that are just mostly shooters, right? Now, some of them are, more ISO creation shooters, but then even just down to guys like Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, who feed off, pace and space and can find their shots. Like, just being able to add in that element where all the rest of those guys know that their work is going to be rewarded, or that there's just a guy they're playing with that's just going to like sort of celebrate the fact that they're taking more shots. Like that's really a rare situation. It would not work for everybody. We know that there's going to be certain combinations that are not going to work here, but where Simmons is concerned, it's just like such the perfect shot in the arm. And again, this is why 14 minutes into this, I'm already feeling like I'm too far out on the emotional thing. Like I need to start probably hedging for the next 16 minutes on the podcast about like pumping the brakes, because I can just feel it. I can feel it happening.
And I think too, you mentioned about maybe this is like the right matchup for it. We also know the version of this exact team with all these same exact players, right? Against certain matchups that maybe defend Ben Simmons a little bit differently or invite him to go into the paint more and say, hey, if you want to take the lane and attack, that's for you to have. And Ben had run into issues being too willing, right? Being inches from the basket and saying, I'll still kick this thing out. But the other part of his game tonight that really worked for him on the offensive end, you mentioned 5 for 5. I mean, heck, it was a bump set spike from Mikal Bridges at the rim there. He took it with his fingertips, but with all of the athleticism and agility we know that he at full health can have, just swatted the thing off the backboard and in. If he's going to have that type of lift and play with, again, the one thing that I am fine overhyping is that he looked as loose and comfortable as I've ever seen him in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. That is not hyperbole. It's not overstating it. He looked loose. He looked comfortable. And whether or not he was coming down in transition and driving at the basket and saying, this is my turn, I'm going to dominate, he still was moving with fluidity, which does make me dial back and think, for all of the hype in the offseason, his own and the team's, I still don't know if he was really fully 100%. And it feels like, well, you come back, a little bit of a tweak here, and maybe it is these last, 2.5, 3 months practically, that allowed him to get that little bit much further down the recovery road. Maybe it wasn't as severe, the setbacks that he was suffering now, as opposed to in the off seasons past.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like, I mean, it was such an extended absence that it's really hard to tell, right? Like he's been gone forever. It felt like it was worse, right? Like, how could it not? It was just like, it was months of just not really any updates. And that was another reason I think that it was probably reasonable to be really tempered in any sort of like feelings about what could happen next, because it was like, hey, he played 6 games and just been out for months. And like, how excited can we possibly get? The guy hasn't been around, and we barely heard word one. And there was like little tea leaves, that he was going to be coming back. And then it's like kind of a practice, and then he comes back. And I was expecting to see a timid thing. Now, there could be a situation where like the Nets realize this too. And they're like, you have to be 1,000% to be able to even come back. We can't bring you back unless it's like all the way, because we've already been down the halfway measures. Like version of this, and we know it looks terrible. It's bad for you. It's bad for us.
And I was saying, guess what? In your absence, we haven't exactly been winning over the fan base of late with our play on the court. This cannot be another drop into that bucket that re-aggravates all the discussion, the trades, the contracts, and everything else, right?
Right, exactly. So I wonder if that was part of the discussion too. It's like, just don't even bother rushing it. Like, there's no point. Like, we know it looks so bad. I mean, we're kind of this is total and 100% speculation at this point, but I think it's reasonable to think that could have been the case, because we just have examples of Simmons. Like, at this point in his career, he needs to be 100%, or there kind of is no point. It's like, it'll be a downward spiral for him, and just in terms of confidence, he's not dynamic enough with the shot to like really have anything to fall back on. And so at that point, like, he needs to be 100%. Right. And so maybe if that was part of the conversation, then all good. And and
that could be honesty from Ben Simmons, by the way, too. Sorry, not to cut you off. It's like, you got to admit to us that you're still not 100%. We get what it looks like. Believe me, we're not happy about it either. Brooklyn Nets organization paying you $40 million and not getting production out of it, but it doesn't help us, and it doesn't help you if you're not fully there yet, right? So the other part of this, obviously, then, if we just move for a brief moment away from Ben Simmons, it's the fourth quarter. It's how this team closed out. It's being able to sit all of your starters down the stretch here. So that was a big part of the Nets getting over a different hump that they've been trying to clear in recent games. We'll talk about that, some of the role players. And then again, how high do we want to hype up this machine as we talk about Ben Simmons' return? We'll get into that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, let you know the show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, around New Year's, we're a month into this new year. Get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just sometimes expanding on what we're already doing right. Been talking about this in my own life a lot recently. It's like, hey, look, I'm trying to improve in certain areas that I'm kind of getting close on, but not all the way there yet. Maybe getting organized in a space, like just trying to tackle a new a problem they've been looking into tackling for a long time, but you're just trying to finally get over that last little hurdle. Maybe you're just like taking supplements every morning. You want to eat breakfast too. It can get down to really simple things too. This is where therapy can really jump in. Look, it can be a time to really just take a close look some of the things you're already doing right, leaning into it with positive coping skills, setting boundaries, empowering you to just be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible. It's totally suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And you're done with that, go visit our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, the big Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Nothing better than getting in some of that prop action for Super Bowl Sunday. That's just, I mean, why even live, folks? Like, this is what we get. This is the whole point. Like, the whole point of the big game is to get really, really dialed in on all those player props. FanDuel has got you covered every which way but loose over on the app. All you got to do is go sign up over on FanDuel. It's America's best sportsbook. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. You can get $200 in bonus bets for your first bet for $5 or more wins. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Oh, so as we continue here on the Locked On Nets podcast to tell you a story about a man returning to the court, 147-114 Nets blowing out the Utah Jazz, a good team, a team that has turned their own season around as well along the way. Ben Simmons obviously getting the job done, making us feel like maybe there is still something to play for this season for the Brooklyn Nets. Beyond him, though, we mentioned Mikal, we mentioned Cam Thomas, and that really, by the way, is a nice trend for them of continuing to have solid games. Cam Thomas, 37, the last one out. You've got in the month of January, it'll move up a little bit here, but Mikal's been averaging a little over 23 points a game. So both those guys were already moving in that direction, and maybe this is how they can help to go to that next level. But off the bench, as wouldn't you know it, has been the theme for this team. Lonnie Walker gave you 27 minutes, 7 of 14 from deep. That's going to be, 7 of 14 from the field, 4 of 9 from beyond the arc, 19 points. And then Dennis Smith Jr., 12 points from him in 15 minutes of action, 5 of 8. Obviously, Royce O'Neal as well, kicking in 11, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, and 2 blocks. I just have to mention it because I never think about Royce O'Neal blocking shots. When you see that too, this is the mix and match part of this thing, right? Because Claxton starts this game. Oh, by the way, bury the lead here. Beautiful job by Brooklyn Nets PR. Cam Thomas started. He started this game. We said no return for the bench for him after the last one. He started. No Dorian Finney-Smith in this one. And then we know the issues that are still going to exist for Nick Claxton and for Ben Simmons and how they shape these things out. The difference here is early in the year, there wasn't Dennis Smith Jr. minutes happening, right? There wasn't Lonnie Walker minutes happening. So there is some different, I think, buttons that Jacque Vaughn can push here to play Ben Simmons, to play Nicholas Claxton, and still find ways to be highly productive.
Yeah, I think Cam Thomas, a nice little bailout there for Vaughn because DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith was out. So they could just kind of slide him into his spot, move Cam Johnson back and be okay there. Simmons working his way back from injury means you don't have to start him, which means you can stagger his minutes like sort of 1-for-1 on Claxton and not have to worry about it. So a couple little things, and we predicted a lot of this would happen, right? Like a couple little things work in their favor here to not have to answer some possibly tough questions, which I'm not sure the Nets are going to go far enough to really have to go crazy on answering all this stuff. But at some point it's hey, we know the Simmons and Claxton piece can look a little rough. But that's really the only guy. Everyone else he really pairs well with and sort of unlocks the ability to play some of these guys for longer stretches. So that is ultimately helpful. It's just it's back to, at some point we might be back to square one at the beginning. It's these two guys just don't really work, right? There's just not enough spacing. Maybe you start feeling back to the KD and Kyrie time where it was if it's all Cam Thomas minutes, maybe that shields it a little bit, right? Because if you go back and look at Claxton and Simmons' minutes together when KD and Kyrie were on the court, it's it doesn't look too bad. It's those guys are generational 3-level scorers. Right. And so if we could just kind of get generational 3-level scorers on here, then all of a sudden you can play with two guys without as much space. Cam Thomas and Mikal aren't that, but they can't do bits of that, right? And and maybe Cam can even do more than bits. He's just really, really good scorer. The one way to mask that pairing is to have two guys who can really score at all 3 levels, right? If you can have that, you can get away and take the advantages that like the defense might give, like the defensive upside that those two guys will bring when they play on the court together. You switch everything, and now all of a sudden you're kind of like a real problem on defense. There is a world where you can squint and see it, where those two guys are not, again, not KD and Kyrie, but sort of like a light JV version of it. Not a knock on them, by the way. This is like KD's an all-time great. So it's like, I'm not knocking these guys. It's like,
right. And Kyrie has an all-time great handle. Like you don't just have Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas.
Cam is like that good of a scorer, though. Cam is that good of a scorer. Like he's great. He's a great scorer. And so the one way to mask that pairing is to have a couple dudes that can do the rest of the stuff. And all of a sudden you can kind of start looking like maybe we'll see. I think this is far down the road. I think we need to get some games under our belt, but just something to think about going forward. It was like, they didn't really have that at the beginning of the year again, because they buried Cam Thomas, but
Doug, we could sit here and quibble over not having the player to play in that role, even though you've had him for 2 years on your roster, but that's neither here nor there. We're there now. And this journey looks a lot brighter. No, I agree with you. And by the way, too, so I do want to ask where does the hype meter go to, and what do we need to see in the next couple of games? Obviously, it's all going to come here, but it's worth just noting too. I mentioned Dennis Smith Jr. He's played very well off of Nick Claxton too. So again, other pairings, right, in second units, and how it doesn't matter who starts ceremoniously or otherwise. Just if Jacques Vaughn and his coaching staff can get to good combinations, and to your point about Thomas and Mikal and Simmons, well, if you can be enough of those versions of elite players around Ben Simmons, well, then you're talking about maybe trying to create a really lethal starting scoring unit in spite of Ben Simmons' offensive limitations. And by the way, second chance opportunities tonight, a lot of that work was from Ben Simmons, right? He had multiple tap outs in the first half of this game where it looked effortless for him. And that's the great reminder, even though he's not on the court sharing it with Claxton, his size and his strength, it just makes it seems effortless for him to position himself effectively. And then he has that little bit more size and body to be able to push, I think, into those pockets, long tap outs. He played very well off of Royce O'Neal tonight too. Like, there's all these different combinations. And oh, by the way, it extends to guys we talk about. Really got to think about trading these players. Really can't have these guys on the roster. Well, unless they seem to pair right with a guy like Ben Simmons. That being the case, just to close out, what do you think after you go to bed tonight, right? We all take cold showers after this, and we wake up in the morning and we say, okay, now what needs to happen next? Because there is still that part that goes, well, unless he comes out and does pretty close to the same thing again on Wednesday night, and then the same thing again the next game, and the next game, and the minutes keep growing, there's always going to be that thing in the back of your mind, right? He at the end of this game, it doesn't look like it's a problem. He comes down awkwardly, rubs the knee a little bit, and they have the blowout and they take him out. But it was that momentary thing of, oh, that's right. Now this is a guy that is right on the razor's edge of having an injury that causes a setback, and he's off the court again.
I think we're just going to have to live with that in the back of our minds and take every day as it is. Like, I don't think there's any other way. You can never trust at this point that he's going to stay healthy for a long period of time. And we are just going to root every day that he does. I don't know another way to take it. There's just too much of a track record of him not playing over the last few years for mostly injury and some other stuff. And I just don't know how you hedge it emotionally any other way. And just to say, hey, 18 minutes tonight, let's get into the 20s, see how it goes. Let's ride the wave, stay healthy as long as you can. Hopefully no setbacks. And that's it. And there's just, is there another way? Am I missing some kind of, am I missing option C where I don't see, because I don't really know another way to do it. I think there's two versions of fans that are going to be like, one's going to be like just waiting for it to happen. I don't want to be like that. I don't think that's just not enough fun. Two, there's another version. It's like he solves everything. They're going to be the 4 seed. I think that's irrational. I think that's irrational too. And I think the world, it's just like a game by game basis. Let's see how it goes.
My closing thought would be, my approach is going to be that this can be enough. Like, Ben Simmons doesn't need to play 35 minutes a night.
Interesting. Yeah.
In the short, in whatever the season's going to be, it's okay. If you're an 18 to 25 minute a night guy, that's all right. We have these other combinations. We've had some success with Nicholas Claxton and other pieces. Be the best version that you can be in the volume that makes sense for you to hopefully stay healthy for the last 36 games of the season, right? That's probably where I'm going to approach it.
And I think too, and just we'll get out of here on this. I think he came back at like the kind of the perfect time of two things happening. One, the team has hit like sort of like new lows that we haven't seen in many years. And so it's like literally anything. Expectations have dropped so low for this team that there was like literally nowhere to go. What up? And honestly, and it's not, expectations for him have dropped pretty low too. Like you could just read it in the tenor of the fans. It's like he was just kind of forgotten. Honestly.
Whatever. One more year away. The money gets off the books. It's about all other agendas related.
And
to
I
the
wonder
dollars,
for him if that's just like the best version for right now too. Is that like the expectations are like so low that that's a good place for him to live in the short term to get back to like health, right? It's like, because coming into the season, it's like, all eyes on this and coming I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And the expectations are really high. Now, like the whole thing is just different with the team. And I wonder for like his particular, like sort of just like setup, if this is like legit the perfect version. It's like sort of like a version of playing with house money. Not exactly, but getting
no
close to
expectations
that.
for the team. So no expectations for you. It's just go out and play basketball. And guess what? It's all relative to results, right? And it truly is in that way. Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, we're going to get out of here. We're going to stick around on YouTube. Got a ton of people here on YouTube. Much appreciated, everyone that's jumped in. In the meantime, make sure you visit those sponsors that we mentioned before. Make sure you go visit wegotnets.com. Everyone likes something free, and that's what you're going to get over at wegotnets.com. So make sure you head over there, grab your copy of the ebook. Come say hi. Love to have you over there.
I'm back in the New York groove. I'm back in the New York groove. Why? That's Aces Fairley.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets. Yeah, lead singer of a band. What's he? AC/DC? No. What's that the lead singer of?
I don't know. I thought Phil Collins or Billy Joel sang that, so I kind of got thrown off track when I looked for this quote. But, still good.
One of the all-time great poets, obviously. We'll be back again tomorrow and in a moment here on YouTube talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball. Yeah. Oh, when the post-game podcast ends, the post-podcast begins. No official title, no playing the music, just full hype, all gas, no breaks. I highlighted so many things inside of this from the fans that I'm not even really sure what we're going to be covering here. First thing I want to say.
By the way, that's Ace. I knew it was. That's Ace Frehley from Kiss.
Oh, from Kiss.
You should know this
back in New York groove?
I don't know, but you should know the name because that's what one Mr. Rivers Cuomo says during In the Garage in the Weezer Blue album. He says, "I got Ace Frehley." That's who he's saying, and that's the line he says to this. Adam, supposed huge Weezer fan, have to call that into question after this.
But classic bad auditory senses, so you're not entirely sure that I even knew the lyrics. Bottom line is though, let's kick it off with a real positive vibe here from Ian. First thing I want to say is everybody calm down. How dare you? I'll tell you right now, Ian.
Beat it.
I don't know where you live, and I don't know if you're bigger than me, but if you're smaller and a little bit feeble, I'll come to your house. We'll have a
I'm going to calm up. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to calm up. I'm going the other direction.
Calm up. If that's the thing, I'm doing it. What else do we got here? Guys, we're going streaking from Dwayne Green. You better believe it. I can tell you what, we said this about how misery loves company when the team was struggling and not winning basketball games. The other thing that loves company is like one moment of a really good vibe. And that's what tonight was like for everybody. So I appreciate every single person, including Prophet too. Just, give me a Brooklyn. Like, give me a Brooklyn one time as we have a 2-game winning streak in the return of Ben Simmons. There's probably some other good ones in here that are asking real questions, and I'm going to find them. Don't you worry about that. Here we go. John, but here's the question for you and Doug. Oh, me and Doug. I'm the great typer over here on the side. If Simmons is on the team next season, do you see him as a legitimate 6-man off the bench? That's probably too far down the road for me to get into. I think the best thing you can hope for is that he's healthy next season. That's what I would be hoping for. I hope that he's healthy.
I'll take him healthy 5 games. I'll take him healthy 5 games from now. Honestly, where
I'll take him healthy next
5
week.
games. Like, let's go game by game, and after a 5-game check-in, we'll see where we are. It's just he's just missed too much time. He's got too many injuries. It's. I'm glad it looked great. But I can't even think that far. It's very hard to think that hard again.
Jared, hey guys, hi Jared.
Hey guys,
just love it. I just love all the energy. How much more fun would this have been if it was against Phoenix from Dwayne as well? I just want to throw that up because there was another one here as we were trying to get started, some technical difficulties on our end before we went live. We did have Nader say Adam's probably tweeting at KD again. I got caught up in a bit of a storm over there. I didn't realize what was happening, and I was optimistic that KD was going to show. I will say,
I saw KD responded to one of your tweets, right? I saw
yeah. I was having a nuanced conversation with Billy Reinhart about whether or not tribute videos will get played upon his return, and Kevin Durant frankly did not care for it, but that's the nature of it. I do think in the Ben Simmons vein, though, to keep it a little bit basketball centric, next matchups are going to be interesting too, right? Like the one thing that I thought he was good on defense, I thought he made some nice plays, had some blocks, but I do want to see what ultimately really is as much about his facilitating and the pace pushing offensively. Well, then defensively, we do need to see you, if we want to have the excitement level get to reach all-time highs, is go lock somebody up for a few possessions, right? And we never saw that even early in the year either on that end of the court. We actually saw some similar things around fouling and having a hard time maybe staying in front of some guys.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that this matchup didn't have sort of like the alpha. I mean, Laurie is kind of like Markkanen's kind of like this, but didn't have that alpha matchup. It's good for him to come off the bench too, grab a little second unit run with some of these guys, so you're not having to feel too much like the dude. I mean, the defense at time for the Nets was good, but they had a ton of lapses. They got back cut
Jesus,
John
Collins
by the Jazz,
camping out underneath the basket like he was on a vacation.
They kept getting stuck with the low man was sort of out of sorts, and but I mean, it didn't end up really coming back to rear its ugly head. But there were some breakdowns. I mean, defense is hard with the communication with a lot of time off the court together, especially if they're going to be running more switching schemes. So I think that's something that will just come around. It will be interesting to see with a really high powered matchup coming up here, right? Like that. With KD and Booker and these guys, how that looks, but I'm all for it. And this is why he's come back at a good time too, just because they need him for games like that on ABC 8:30 Wednesday. It's all eyes on that game. So I'm glad to have him back for that one.
Nate, or any tips on not getting my Ben hopes too high? Nope, can't help you. Sorry. Just get on the roller coaster and ride it all the way to the top, baby. Don't look down. It's going to be a sweet ride. Is it just me? Says Halcyon. I always want to call you Hal. Is it just me? You invest in Lonnie or no? Move Dinwiddie, Royce, Giles. Games like this and games like this with Ben Simmons, something that we didn't get a big sample size early on for Lonnie Walker specifically. I think this is why you take a flyer on a guy like that, because he's same thing. A floor spacer, can benefit from pushing the pace. I actually think he's one of the guys that benefits from a more up tempo. Makes me think of who's the speedy guy? Edmund Sumner. I got there. It makes me think of Edmund Sumner, not nearly as quick, but the same type of guy, right? Lengthy, has the outside shooting, can go at the rim occasion. You need some of that pace, and I think he benefits from that in a big way.
Oh yeah, agreed. Sorry. I was reading a couple of these questions. No, the pace is such a huge thing, man. It was so tangible. There's the difference in pace that they can't. The second he hit the court, I'm telling you, it's keep an eye out. We've talked about this forever, but keep an eye on him after I always point back to this, him after the makes. If you watch enough basketball, there's very few guys in the NBA that want to push after the other team has made a basket. And it really is a chance to take advantage. Most teams are getting back, and it's a chance to reset. Most times you're going to walk it up the court. A lot of the really good players don't really want to push it anyway. If you watch Luka, some of the Giannis does it a little bit. You'll see him do it a little bit more.
Because they can settle into the offense though and go get their shot and get their look.
And he's a guy that benefits if you're on your guys that benefit if you're on your heels a lot. Giannis is. Giannis, he's incentivized to get the ball up the court pretty quickly because he knows that if he can get ahead of steam on you, you're kind of just dead. But a lot of their teams, they're happy to get in the half court offense, like Nuggets and Mavericks and these teams, because that's a good place to live. But the Nets, if they can have a guy that pushes it like that, they have very few chances to create real disadvantage for the other team on the offensive end, just because of the nature of their personnel. But that does offer a chance. You're just not expecting that. You're not expecting after a make to have to sprint back on defense.
Yeah.
But Simmons wants to do that because he doesn't want to be in the half court. That's not his area. He doesn't want to. It's where he's hitting DHOs or sitting in the dunker spot.
Yeah, he's selfish.
He'd much rather.
I look best in transition. I don't look good when we get in half court.
Of course, and I'm glad he knows it. Actually, the one piece I'm really glad he knows that's where his bread's buttered.
I really appreciated when Doug briefly left the show earlier Brian had this one on tap. Left to go get Ben's
technical.
autograph. Giles
Yeah,
as well.
I'm having a few different technical. We're in the bonus here. I'm having a few technical difficulties here. My lighting's a little screwed up, and my camera kind of stopped working. And
listen.
Came in late. I was late. I was late for the podcast because I'm dealing with something else going on. It's a total mess.
Don't worry. I vamped with ease in the chat. Nobody was suspicious.
You did a great job.
Brooklyn from John.
I love this one.
By the way, John, and I addressed this. I addressed you in the chat before the show started as well. You coming in with it, you were right on the edge of negativity, and we can't have that tonight. Brooklyn's next pursuit of a superstar. Do you think the main criteria should be someone who actually possesses leadership qualities and just isn't a good at scoring? I'm assuming you're referring maybe like to a Cam Thomas, who's obviously the young player, very good scorer, maybe not a leader for this team. You don't know though; he could grow into that role. And I think, listen, leadership is all relative to success and talent. Was Kevin Durant, and I'm not even knocking these guys, was Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving a great leader? It kind of doesn't matter. They're so effing good that they score a lot of points. You win a lot of basketball games, and it goes by the wayside. The biggest criteria is just getting better players on this team to help them win basketball games.
I have a good one here I wanted to put up here. I'll throw a wet blanket on this. Wonder how many teams get caught up in the hype and attempt to trade for Ben. 0. So this is where I know where to finally hit the brakes on this, and it's gonna be right here. This is where we hit the brakes. Nobody's trading for him. Nobody's trading for him.
Not after one game, but after 2 games, Doug. Maybe 3 games. There was 5 more games before the trade deadline.
If you play, I'll start entertaining this scenario if he plays the rest of the season basically healthy, and I'm talking the whole season,
this kind of level of play and
no setbacks. I will not come off my you can't trade Simmons until that point. So I'm saying that out loud so you hold me to it.
Happy to do so. 2 games from now, I tell you what we got to do here. We got to start fielding offers. This one, I'm just really quick from Halcyon again, because we said we weren't really a fan of the D'Lo move, but I will say Ben Simmons is going to play 18 to 25 minutes. You see that pushing the pace a little bit more, that maybe Spencer Dinwiddie needs to be moved on. Do you adjust yourself at all to what it looks like if Ben Simmons is a part of this team and the other ancillary moves that you might make at the deadline off of other teams' bigger trades?
No, I can't make a single move based on Simmons. It's just too fraught with peril. It's
right. And you're still talking D'Lo still has that extra year on it, so it's still the same.
You just can't make any move because of Simmons. That's all I'm saying. Is you can't do it with Simmons' mind. If you think it's a good independent move, go do it. It cannot be. It cannot have Ben Simmons is a good match for this guy attached to the reason you want to do it, because he is not. It's not, you can't trust he's going to play enough. That being said, if there's a good move out there, you should do that move. I don't know.
Right. And maybe that's more the reminder of guys that push this pace for this team. It helps all the guys that are on this team. Now there's not another Ben Simmons, archetype out there that you can go trade for, but just thinking about that from a backcourt perspective, if something comes up where you feel like you have a guy that can push pace and help this team get out in transition so that both units have a similar type of feel, then I think that it's something they should explore, not because of Ben Simmons, but because of the style of play that probably is the best version of this team. Let's see what we got here. A lot of fun ones. Oh, Doug, you got to take this out. Yeah, you got to take this out of there. I can't just be circling the train here. Here's Habla. Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons complement each other very well. The Doug Norrie and Adam Arms of basketball. I like to. I believe. I don't know if Ryan Rucco and Richard Jefferson said it on the broadcast, but I've heard that go. That's been circulating for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously that's two of the biggest names on the court and 2 of the biggest names in that's podcasting. I don't know, what else. It's obvious.
If I could tell you the number of times that Doug and I go out around town and people go, Cam, Ben, autograph? And we say, listen, not right now. We're just kind of doing our thing. Also, please kneel down to our height level.
Ben Simmons here also said y'all go buy some Simmons jerseys now.
Yeah,
I gotta say right now, no one's gonna like theirs. I don't own a single basketball jersey, and I never will.
Can we break the 7th wall about fandom? Jerseys were never something that I
careful.
That I ever like. I love hats. Like I have 7 different Brooklyn Nets hats, and I have T-shirts, and I have all that stuff. But jerseys were just always like, for me personally, and this isn't about for other people wearing jerseys. When I put on a jersey, a basketball jersey, a football jersey, a hockey jersey, I look ridiculous. It's
Oh,
not
God.
about the product. It's about
Yeah.
it's me. It's a me problem, and I just don't feel secure in them. So I can't go purchase them.
Yeah, I don't think I haven't owned a basketball jersey since I had David Robinson, the Admiral, when I was in 7th grade. And that was
I
the
had the
last
black
time.
alternate Chicago Bulls Jordan jersey growing up.
And I looked ridiculous in that one. I played basketball, so I wore the jerseys, but
And you
like
looked ridiculous when you played basketball, which was the downfall.
that's
of
not
your
true. Adam knows
career.
that's not true. But the no, but I looked ridiculous off the court in the
Yes,
jerseys.
yeah. That's just mostly about me not being a fashion forward kind of guy. Let's go ahead and get this one here. Awesome, Doug. You're allowed, excuse me, to be happy after everything we've been through for this season. I'll couple that right here with Al Mack, who came flying in with Adam and Doug haven't been happy for a month, first time in a long time. Honestly, you might be right, Al. Like I feel a little bit lightheaded, and I think it's just from smiling and feeling good after a game. Because by the way, you only have to go back to the game before this when Doug and I came in after a win and had to work really hard to continue to remind us and you that the Nets had won that game because of the nature of how the fourth quarter unfolded for them. So yeah, I'm happy to be happy. Happiness.
I got a quiz question for you right now.
Oh, boy.
What team in the NBA has the 4th longest active winning streak?
Brooklyn Nets with 2.
You got it. That was it. 2. The Brooklyn Nets with 2. 4th longest active winning streak in the NBA.
League's about parity, baby.
2 games.
League's about parity.
If the playoffs started today, guess who'd be in the play-in?
Yep, that's right. Just like we always do it.
10 seed.
Just like we always knew we would be. Which, by the way, actually, I did do this exercise too. I was thinking about comically. Doug, listen, if you don't want to have the conversation, just say so. We don't have to get into this thing where you just leave the room. I mean, he'll be back, guys. Don't worry. I was having this thought exercise about, okay, Ben Simmons is coming back. I went and looked at the schedule and I checked off losses, not wins. I checked off like, okay, these are going to be losses against all the teams that you would think about. And I think I got somewhere to like, was it 15, 16, 17 losses. They had 37 games left coming into this one. And it was basically, what's the record that you can anticipate this team finishing with? And that had nothing to do. That wasn't tied to Ben Simmons at all. It was just, what is the record you think this team could finish with? And as Doug mentioned, being in the 10th seed, the funny thing was, it was like, I said, maybe they go, 16 and 23, because I got to 39 games, I think is what they had remaining. I was like, 16 and 23. Well, they'll still be well below 500. But then I wanted to look to the Eastern Conference. I thought, it's still good for a 10 seed, though. Like this team could be a 34-win team. Be like, we're coming for you, boys. It's all about that play-in tournament.
Yeah, I will say, like they got a hill to climb here. Some of these other teams have played okay. The Heat have lost 7 in a row, but that's not going to continue. And all these other teams have basically been winning every game. So it's this is going to be,
Atlanta's the competition, man. That's it. You got to hold off Atlanta. Toronto 1-9 in their last 10. Hornets 2-8, 3-7 for the Wizards and Pistons. Though, watch out for the Pistons. They're putting together a little streak for themselves.
Yeah, so they won without Cade the other night. All right, I think we're pretty close to getting out of here.
I did that. Okay, good. Sorry, cleared it out.
Someone asked about signature shoes. This was also a note for me.
Yeah, you know what I did have though? Not to age myself. Remember the pumps? I used to get myself nice and pumped up, get out on the court and be like, now, at the time, I was like, hey, you think that a 4'8" middle schooler can't, shake you down, and then I spray my ankle.
I just don't have any. I'm just not. You came to the wrong place. I'm just not a shoe guy, not a jersey guy.
I'm a Chuck Taylor's guy, though. I got some shoe game there. I had all jet.
If you go back and watch the podcast, you'll notice a very
don't go back. No. Don't tell me to do that. It's good. This is a very exposing comment you're about to make.
You'll notice a theme in that. Well, I wear not the same clothes every day, but I just have I wear basically just all black and very dark blue. That's like the only 2 colors I wear, and that's basically all I wear all the time.
You're like Winona Ryder from Beetlejuice. I get it. And then last but not least, that's why Ben Simmons is my favorite player. Just tweaking. Listen, in all sincerity, man, still up over 180 people here. We're over 200 for a while. For all of the fun that we have around Misery Loves Company, this is the best version of coming in on post games and the best version of talking about Ben Simmons. And we always appreciate everybody that comes in. So
yeah, it was so much. It was so.
Hold on.
No, I'm not emo. I'm not emo. I'll explain. This is a short explanation. I like to reduce choice in my life. So I just have lots of clothes that are like exactly the same. So I just have like black hoodies and my vests and my whatever
You'd be
this
like
is.
Mr.
This
Rogers coming
North
home,
Face
taking
vest
off
or
the black sweater and putting on the black sweater and saying, and now?
yeah, it's not emo. It's just like I like to think about other things during the day, and I don't like to think about what I'm going to wear, so I wear the same rotation of like very similar clothes. That's all. All
We
right.
have an off day coming up, Ian, so we will talk about this here. We'll
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
just about bigger kind of picture and outlook stuff. We just wanted to have a whole bunch of fun.
I will say that, you know, we're 10 days away from the trade deadline, and the Nets, and this is looking very much like it's going to be. There aren't that many sellers out there. Is it emu? Yeah, you got it. More like an alpaca. The trade deadline, like there aren't tons of sellers out there. There's a few, but it's kind of an interesting market. I think a lot of these teams are, you know, maybe we see DeJounte Murray traded. Like a lot of these teams are just going to be, I think more teams want to be buyers. I think here, or like they're in the Grizzlies situation where the guys are just all hurt and they can't trade anybody anyway. Right. And so,
and that was the point of the plan. That's the point of the 10 seed, right? To keep more teams invested in the season than not.
But if you just run down the teams, I'll do it real fast here before we get out of here.
Okay.
Teams that would potentially be trading guys away. Okay, Timberwolves buyers, probably. Thunder buyers. Nuggets probably do nothing. Clippers probably can't do anything. Kings, they're not going to sell. Maybe get something. Suns can't do anything, really. Pelicans, they've been playing good enough that they're not going to move off any of their guys, probably. Mavs, they're buyers. Lakers, buyers. Jazz, maybe, but like they're kind of close to making the playoffs. Rockets are going to be buyers, if anything else. They're not going to sell anybody. Warriors, probably buyers. Grizzlies can't do anything. Blazers maybe sell. Spurs maybe sell, but don't have tons to sell. That's the whole Western Conference. Like, there aren't many guys moving from those teams, right? And so that's the Western Conference. Celtics are probably just like what they have. Bucks, they mostly probably like what they have here. Sixers, maybe they make a move, but for who? It's like not totally clear. Knicks, Cavs, they're probably pretty close to what they're going to be. Pacers just made their move. Magic, maybe they try to get a shooter. They're buyers. Heat, they just made their move. Bulls, I don't know. They play good enough to try to just make the 8th or 7th seed. Nets, Hawks. I mean, that's kind of it. Raptors made their move. Maybe they, I think they're pretty much going to stick. Started to give the whole list here. Point being, Hornets, I mean, they don't even have, maybe trade Miles Bridges to the one team that wouldn't worry about the PR hit, right? And then Wizards maybe sell, and Pistons don't have tons to sell. It's that's the whole, that's everybody. It's not, there's not, I think it's going to be really quiet. I just don't think, it's just not that robust of a market, I think, for what teams need versus who would actually want to give something up.
Yeah, and even the things like the Lakers and the Murray conversation, it's like, well, it keeps falling apart because the Lakers, one of the teams that does want to buy, doesn't have a lot to buy with. So
that's what I mean. We X'd out a bunch of teams because they've already made their move or made their move last year or something and have nothing left.
Yeah, and they're trying to buy stuff for pennies on the dollar, and a lot of these guys are under contract. Murray, the great example, he's under contract. Atlanta can make this decision at any point they want. They're not in a pressure move to do that, so it should be fun.
So I think that, I mean, if anything, maybe that increases the price on guys like DFS or who's going to miss at least 2 games. We didn't get to talk about that with the ankle turn, but 2 games, that was a pretty good thing that they said 2 games. I think he's going to be back sooner than later. O'Neal, maybe they fetch a little bit more, but I just think most teams are, maybe I'm going to be wrong. I think most teams, the way they look now is the way they're going to look after the trade deadline. That's my gut feeling.
And I will say on the Nets, I think that this the return of Ben Simmons for 2 games for 10 games, I think this also leans more towards the Nets are less likely, if they ever were to do something, because it's kind of this, the version that we thought we maybe were going to have with this team. They might make a couple of margin moves with some of the expirings, but nothing of significance where you feel like we're going to be a whole different team after the deadline.
No, they're gonna look mostly the same. I think if there's a 2-player difference, I'd be shocked. I think. Yeah. Or 3 players would be the max I would say they would trade, and I don't even think they're going to get that. I don't think they're going to trade 3 players. That's my gut.
Yeah. 1 would be I think 1's likely, 2 possible, 3 very unlikely to me.
Yeah.
But we can talk about a whole nother episode because that's what that was the tease. But don't worry, we'll expand upon that on the off day. Listen, I had pumps. I used to shop at thrift stores, 3D boxing. I'm 38, and I look like a young 22 year-old decrepit. Somebody called me 50 the other day, so that was kind of depressing too.
Well, I've been a Nets fan since I've been saying this. I've been a Nets fan since 1954, and so you can just do the math. You can do the math.
All time.
You do the math. Since number one Nets fan since 1954. Okay, we are gonna get out of here. Really appreciate everyone that jumped into YouTube. These are the best. These are the best times to talk hoops, man. You get Simmons back. The team looks good. Go celebrate by going to WeGetNets.com. Grab that free ebook. Like I said, people already asking for more stories. We already put our life into the stories that we're gonna give you. So I'm not sure how many more we can get out right away, but we got a bunch of stuff planned for here for WeGotNets. Make sure you go to WeGotNets.com.
There's a party going on right here, a celebration to last throughout the years. That is Emir Diodato or Cool in the Gang. As the producer.
There you go. All-time great poets. We're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball. Ben Simmons back. Basketball. Yeah.